everyone. Welcome to Hyperspace on Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening, and a special thank you to webmaster and producer Keith Rowland. And my special guest this evening is Merrell Fankhauser. Merrell Fankhauser has led one of the most diverse and interesting careers in music. He was born in Louisville, Kentucky, and moved to California when he was 13 years old. Merrell went on to become one of the innovators of surf music and psychedelic folk rock. His travels from Hollywood to his 15-year jungle experience on the island of Maui have been documented in numerous music books and magazines in the United States and Europe. Merrell has gained legendary international status throughout the field of rock music. His credits include over 250 songs published and released. He is a multi-talented singer, songwriter, and a unique guitar player whose sound has delighted listeners for over 35 years. In the early 60s, Merrell has led the instrumental surf group The Impacts, who had a hit with their album titled Wipeout, which was reissued in 1994 on Delphi Records in the United States, and in 1995 on Repertoire Records in Germany. And Merrell has a new CD out called Signals from Malibu and Messages from the Dome. His new book, Calling from a Star, The Merrell Fankhauser Story, will be available at Amazon.com and other online sources Monday, December 1st, which of course has already happened, and later in select stores and ebook. And his website is www.merrellfankhauser.com. And please welcome Merrell to the show this evening. Hi, Merrell.
Hi, Solaris. Good to be with you tonight.
Oh, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you on board with us tonight. So thank you for joining us.
Yes, great to be here.
Yeah, so tell me about this CD now, and how you got involved with this CD, and what sparked your interest insofar as creating music to accommodate this anomaly signal?
Well, it was an interesting, burst of inspiration, Solaris. I had no idea what was going to happen when I got these signals that are from this anomaly that's off the coast of Malibu, that's underwater there. And I was contacted by author and researcher Michael C. Luckman, who authored the book Alien Rock, The Extraterrestrial Connection, and I was interviewed for his book about 5 years ago. And we've been keeping in touch with each other. And he told me about this anomaly. This has been a few months back now that I'd never heard of. And then he got in touch with me and told me that this World War II retired radio operator expert lived up in the hills of Malibu, and he still liked to communicate with people in Australia and New Zealand on ham radio. And one night when he finished talking to somebody, he dialed off the frequency a little bit and started picking up these very strange radio signals. And he had no idea there was some building out there in the ocean, but he could pinpoint exactly the coordinates where it came from. And he had some piece of equipment that he put in his car that could also give him coordinates, and he started driving up the Pacific Coast Highway going north. He found that when he got 5 miles north of Point Doom, the signals went away. When he went 5 miles south, they went away again. So he knew his equipment in the house was telling him exactly where it was coming from, somewhere out in the ocean. So his first thought was, it must be the Navy doing something. And Port Hueneme, the Naval Air Station, is north of there a ways. And he knew somebody from there, and they said, no, we don't have anything going on right now out there. So he started sending these signals to people to try to figure out what they were, and one of the people he sent it to was Michael Luckman at the Extraterrestrial Research Center in New York. And Michael got the signals and said, we've got to send these to Merrell Fankhauser.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah. So they sent them to me, and I put the signals on, and it was really strange, Solaris. It was like, I have to say, I almost felt like they were communicating with me, and I heard this song. And I heard this like low instrumental surf style guitar part, and it kind of reminded me of something from a 60s James Bond movie. And so I ran in my studio real quick and just recorded the guitar part so I wouldn't forget it, and started writing down the chords and some other ideas I had for other musical augmentation. And then my drummer and my violinist, Sal Garza and Art Dugal, came over and listened to it and went, wow, this is wild. In about an hour, we knocked out this whole song. And the first song we recorded was Signals from Malibu. And when we got finished, we had goosebumps when we walked out of the studio. We knew it was something special. And I sent it back to Michael Luckman, and he got some things in newspapers about it, and put a post on the internet, and then said, oh, I better play this for a few of these radio hosts I know. And before I knew it, I'd done, over 10 radio interviews, and then I started getting requests from radio stations, and some of them were pop rock stations for the two songs. So I released a single on my own, no record company promoting it yet, and it's on over 80 radio stations right now as we speak.
Wow, how fascinating. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to highlight that tonight, by the way, your music with the Anomaly.
And it happened so fast. I mean, maybe once I've had this happen where I self-released something and all of a sudden it just took off on its own, and without a record company promoting it. And it's really awesome. Now I've got two labels that are interested in releasing the entire album, but I've already released the album on my own because I started getting requests and orders through email for the album.
Oh, it's beautiful too. The way you put it together, it's just awesome. Yeah, I applaud you for that, for sure. And you said there was kind of a connection between this type of anomaly signal and the Billy Meyer.
Yeah, that's what really, that just happened, Sunday night. I was on Dr. Bob Hieronymus' show out of Maryland, and he really blew my mind, Solaris, because I had no idea. I had never heard anything like these signals that I'm working with here, the ones from Malibu, and I did whale and dolphin research when I lived on Maui, and I had a hydrophone, and I used to record whale and dolphin chatter. And it may sound a little similar to a dolphin, but not exactly. So, I really was stumped as to what this was. Well, Sunday night, Dr. Bob played the Billy Meyer sounds that he recorded when this UFO was hovering over his house. And I know you know all about that case. And they've tried to debunk it, and they haven't been able to. I know Billy Meyer got a lot of criticism, and his dog was barking at this UFO that was hovering there, and you can hear the dog barking in this recording that Billy Meyer made. Well, Dr. Bob started playing these signals, and I immediately went, oh my gosh, this is almost identical to these Malibu signals that have just been picked up. And the Billy Meyer recording was from 1970, wasn't it? I think.
It was a long time ago. And you know what? I actually listened to that today, and you're right. It does sound quite similar. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then he went to another recording of Billy Meyer that he had recorded, and he said, okay, he said that one I just played sounds like your opening to your first song, but listen to this and tell me if this sounds like anything. And by gosh, the second song that I did, Messages from the Dome, there in this Billy Meyer thing was another part that was identical. And when I first got the signals, I heard in my mind that it was two layers, like it was two tracks. I, work in multi-track recording in the studio, and I could tell there were two separate layers, a bottom layer that almost sounded machine-like, and then this part on the top that sounded like talking or singing. And I had a local engineer that teaches audio engineering at a college run it through his oscilloscope, and he said, "You're exactly right, Merle. There's two layers to these signals." And same thing is in those Billy Meyer signals.
Yeah, they sure are. That's fascinating. And I would suspect you have an ear for that sort of thing in general, just listening on a multidimensional level, that you're able to pierce that veil. But what does it signal to you on a subconscious level? I mean, with these transmissions, you said they sort of, they gave you chills. What exactly are you feeling in consciousness? I mean, do you feel like this is an extraterrestrial design, or do you feel it's more machine-based, man-made?
Well, I really didn't know at first, and like I've told you, I've been studying UFOs since I was a little kid, and then I got interested in lost continent theories and everything. So I keep an open scientific mind to everything, and at first, because I knew where the signals came from, before I heard the Billy Meyer signals, I thought, well, it might be some new code that our Navy has, and maybe they were doing it with a submarine out there, some kind of test or something. But when I heard those Billy Meyer signals and how similar they were, I thought, maybe we really do have something extraterrestrial here.
Right. Well, there's definitely an anomaly, to say the least. And I agree with you on the Billy Meyer, because I did see the similarity. You could. They almost dovetail, and it's funny because when I played your CD, I played your MP3 files, and then I was playing the Billy Meyer over it, and they almost blend in.
Yeah.
It was really wild, but I was just kind of playing around with it to see how they correlated, and I'm telling you, it's really interesting. I don't know if you've tried that or not.
No, I haven't.
Check it out next time.
I've been so busy answering emails and doing interviews lately. I'm glad I got the album done in time, and it's been quite a ride I've been taken on with this, and it's so funny because about a month before this happened, my drummer and I were out in the recording studio, and we were putting up some new insulation, and he was saying, "Well, what's our next project going to be, Merle?" And I said, "Art, I'd like to do something totally out of the box." And he goes, "Yeah, that sounds good." I had no idea how far out of the box it was going to be, because these things have inspired me to do this whole album, Signals from Malibu, and I think it's the fastest I've written and conceived and actually released an album. It's been less than a month that I did 10 different songs that are all inspired by these signals.
Wow, so it's almost like you channeled them to some degree, isn't it?
Yeah, I really have to say that. I really feel like it was channeled. And the interesting thing, the song Messages from the Dome, after I finished the first song, Signals from Malibu, I realized there was about 4 minutes and 15 seconds worth of signals that I hadn't listened to. And they were a little bit different, and there was a little more of the high-pitched tone in the last group of signals. So I thought, okay, I'll just put them on. I walked out in the studio and sat down at the piano. And I'm not a real good piano player. I play a lot of electronic keyboard and do background synthesizer pads, and organ parts. But I sat down at the acoustic piano out in the studio with the headphones on. I thought, oh, what the heck, I better push record just in case. Well, I went into that feeling that I've felt many times before. It's almost like you're just in a trance-like dream state. And when I heard the signals, my fingers just started moving by themselves like it was automatic writing. And I played to the end, and I just went, wow, what happened? So I went and listened to it, and I couldn't believe it. And then Sal Garza came over and heard what I had played, and he said, who played the piano? And I said, I did. And he said, yeah, right. And I said, no, I played that. And he said, now you're a concert pianist?
Oh, wow.
And he's a classically trained violinist and plays with symphonies and everything. And he said, this is tremendous. And I said, well, here, look, I've jotted down a few violin parts for you and a few cello parts. Let's put these together. So we did that. Then I played a bass part on it and a background, just 12-string guitar parts in the bridge. And we finished it, and we went, this is even higher consciousness than the first song. And oddly enough, it's getting played on some classical stations now.
Awesome. How fascinating. And you know what, Merrell? We have Grant Cameron here who called, and he's been dying to talk to you tonight. So, Grant, hi.
How you doing, Solaris?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Just fine. It's quite an honor to be able to talk to Merrell here. I don't know if you told him my background, how I got into this sort of thing. I'm sort of very interested in his story.
Right. Yes, I gave him a brief rundown.
And I can sort of give you a background. As I had said numerous times, I was a musical idiot. I didn't listen to music as a kid, wasn't interested in music, and only got dragged into this music UFO thing by Chris Bledsoe. But the strange thing is, I was thinking just the other day, I've only bought 2 albums in my life. One was a Herb Alpert album, and the other one was Wipeout when I was a young kid. I got a 45 of Wipeout, and then I'm thinking like, man, this is like synchronicity. This is pretty weird stuff that now we have Merrell here, who's got this bizarre experience. And so I had a couple questions. I have to go to a UFO meeting here. We have an experiencer group of people a number of them who've gotten songs that they've sort of downloaded. But I was kind of interested in some of the aspects of his experience in terms of, as you know, what I'm interested in now is sort of the download experience, the idea. And I think Merrell has brought it up in previous interviews that there may be some sort of somebody helping us in doing this sort of thing. So I think that would be the main question I would want to ask or get him to sort of explain where does music really come from? Is there an alien influence that Michael Luckman is going to be looking into and that I've looked into? Where does this music come from? Has he ever had these sort of downloads before where you can sort of sit down at a piano and suddenly, in 10 minutes you've got a song all composed and things like that?
That's a good question, Grant, and I've got several answers for it. But I want to say I'm glad to meet you because I've heard from several people that you've enjoyed my music and what I've been doing, and it's good to meet you. The question you just asked me was asked me on Maui in 1975 when I took refuge with Karmapa, one of the Tibetan lamas, and my lady friend Mary Lee, the violinist, and I were the first people that actually played Western music for him. And they were having this retreat on Maui. And he asked me, where does the music come from? And I said, everywhere. And he said, good answer. And, I never thought of it coming from aliens, but I've had this sort of, feeling and extra sensory sense since I was very young. And I could just always tell when a song was coming because I'd kind of get this like nervous feeling, and I'd have to put the song down in some form, either record it on a little cassette or start writing it down real quick, or it would go away. And an interesting encounter in I think it was 77 or 78, around there, I was invited to a party at my friend Harry Nilsson's house, the singer-songwriter in Hollywood. And I flew in from Maui, where I was living, and they picked me up and took me there. And I walked in with my acoustic guitar, and he said, "This is Merrell Fankhauser, my friend from Maui, and he's going to sing a song." And I looked over in the corner, and John Lennon was sitting there.
Okay.
And it's the first time in my life I ever got stage fright, and my lips started twitching. So I played this song called "On Our Way to Hana," and it's on YouTube if you type in my name and "On Our Way to Hana," and it's about seeing 2 UFOs on Maui. And after I finished the song right away, John said, "Very interesting. What inspired that?" So I started talking to him about that. And then we had a conversation about songwriting, and he was as baffled about it as I was. He says, "I don't know where some of those songs that I've written come from." He says, "I really do feel," we didn't use the word channeling, he used automatic writing. He said, like it's coming from somewhere, and you're just the medium that it comes through. And I really had an epiphany, and I said, "Man, right on. That's the same feeling that I got." So I know Michael Luckman now is suggesting that maybe aliens have influenced us. Well, there's a song I wrote called "Calling from a Star," where I had my only UFO sighting in my entire life at the top of Haleakala Crater, and it inspired me to write a song called "Calling from a Star." So there could be something to it. I can't say definitely that that's where it's coming from, but definitely these signals that they sent me that were picked up in Malibu, Grant, has inspired me in some way, and I almost feel like it was communicating with me. And after I finished the second song, "Messages from the Dome," my violinist pointed out that I was playing in the same key as these signals were broadcasting in. It was in the key of E.
That's amazing. Wow.
Can you describe your setting? I think I heard you talk about this before. This is back in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Can you describe your sighting? What happened there?
Well, I was up at the top of Haleakala Crater on Maui, and that was, about 1974. And I was up there with my band Moo, who we had all moved there from California to Maui, because we heard that the Hawaiian Islands were the mountain peaks of the lost continent of Mu. And we went up to the top of the crater just to see the sunset, because it's so beautiful up there when the sun sets. And right after the sunset, we were standing on this hill above the observatory, and there was maybe 10 or 12 tourists there also. And all of a sudden, this sort of bluish-greenish light came right in to the front of us, down lower on the floor of the crater, and it lit up the floor of the crater. And we all went, "Whoa, what is that?" And then, not even a minute later, 2 more came out of the first light and formed an inverted pyramid, a tetrahedron, and they started shining a light around from one to the next. So it formed this inverted pyramid, and we're all just amazed. And there was an old guy standing not too far from me, and he was an ex-World War II Navy vet, and he said, "I have never seen anything like that before. And we watched it for, I'd say it seemed like it was a good 4 minutes or more. And then all of a sudden they all went back together as one. And in a blink of an eye, it shot straight up and disappeared. And that's to this day, my one and only UFO sighting, but it was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And that inspired the song Calling from a Star that we later shot on 16 millimeter film at the top of the crater years later, and that's on YouTube also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
very pretty.
Yeah, very interesting. May Pang once stated that John had a tape recorder beside his bed, and I think the Rolling Stones, some of them had a tape recorder. Do you have a tape recorder that, in case you wake up and something's in your head, do you do that kind of stuff?
Oh, yes. I have a pad of paper. My studio, though, is just down the hall, but sometimes that interrupts the inspiration. If it hits me, I have to turn on the light. And I was even keeping my guitar by the side of my bed, and, I'd wake up and get some idea and turn on the cassette machine. I still use an older cassette machine just to capture something in a pad to write music or lyrics down. And I have actually written songs in dreams and woke up and went, oh my God, and I heard it in my head, and I had to put it down real quick before it went away.
Can you name some of those songs? Do you remember what the songs were?
Oh, yeah. There's a funny song on my 1976 Maui album that was all inspired in my little jungle cabin on Maui, and one of them was called La La Does the Boo-Roo. and I wrote that in a dream and woke up and remembered it. And in the same house, I wrote one of my all-time favorite songs called Waterfall. And my house was out in the jungle on the road to Hana, and there was a stream right in front of the house. I built this 2-story jungle cabin, and up from the stream a ways was a waterfall. And I was sitting there one night, and I just heard the water trickling over the rocks, and it just sent me into this melody. And we didn't have any electricity in that house, and we used candles and kerosene lanterns. And I woke up, and Mary was there with me then, and she said, "What's wrong?" I said, I got an inspiration. And she couldn't find any paper right away, so she grabbed a paper bag and a pencil, and I started playing these chords. I couldn't even tell what I was playing. Da 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 da. Waterfall, oh my waterfall, flowing into the sea. And I wrote the song Waterfall, but the batteries were dead in my little cassette recorder. And so I went, oh my God, what am I going to do? And she was a classically trained violinist too, so she started writing the notes down. But John Lennon said the same thing that I did. He said, if you don't record it when it's fresh, that freshness goes away. And he said that's what frustrated him later on in the Beatles' career. He would write these songs, and it would be months sometimes before they could go in the studio and record them. And he'd say, getting it down when you have that fresh inspiration is the best way to do it. And he was so right. So what I did, I stayed up all night playing that song Waterfall, and I had a friend in town in Paia that I knew got up early and went surfing, and he had a reel-to-reel tape recorder. So I drove in there, 6 o'clock in the morning. Sammy, can I use your tape recorder? Yeah, there's a fresh reel of tape on it. I turned it on and recorded my demo to Waterfall. And within, I think 2 months, we flew back over to California, and we recorded the whole Maui album. But there was several songs on that album that were inspired in those kind of ways.
Fascinating.
Wow.
Fascinating stuff.
I consider myself very lucky because, a lot of people they say, oh, writing is hell, and, you got to try to come up with something, and it's never been that way for me. It's like I hear a song finished in my head, and I can usually get the whole thing down on paper in at least a demo in 15 minutes, and I don't have to worry about the freshness leaving now because I can walk right down the hall, call up the band, and we all go in and record it.
Wow. And do you know that it's a sort of a hit? Do you know that this is a song you have to record, that it's going to be something special?
Grant, I do get that feeling, and with Waterfall, I was actually nominated for a Hoku Award. It's a Hawaiian Grammy, and 3 other Hawaiian bands have recorded the song now, and I get so many emails from people, and I used to get letters saying how much they liked that song. And
wow.
and from young people too, and they're asking me the chords of the song, and some of these are people that weren't even born in 1975, so I'm very honored and flattered that young people like my music.
Yeah. Wow. Can I ask just one more question before I take off? I heard that you were Mike was planning a concert. I know he was going to try this in New York, and now they're talking about California. Can you talk a bit about that? Would you be involved in this sort of UFO sort of?
Yeah, his alien rock. He calls it Alien Woodstock. It wouldn't be that big, but an alien rock concert. Oh yeah, he's already asked me and several other well-known musicians, and we've all given him the okay.
Wow.
And I think he's sort of looked into it. And there is some red tape to go through with the city of Malibu, because to stage something that would end up being pretty big there, you need a large area. Pepperdine University, the college that I've been there before and been on their little radio show that they have a large area that'll hold about 15,000, and then there's some property adjoining that would probably hold another 10,000 people. They have the little Malibu fair there every summer. So that is one option, and then the other option would be a movie star that owns some property in the hills there that might happen on. But, trying to get the city to go along with it, and they're worried about crowd control, and the traffic would be enormous and everything. It's a pretty big undertaking, and we'll see. Michael sure wants to do it, and I told him myself and the band is on board, and I've even talked to my friend Dean Torrance of Jan and Dean about performing with us.
Wow.
If that happens, and so we'll see. I hope it does happen.
Yeah, that would be a big event if that did happen. That would be quite something.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, again, it's been an honor to talk to you, and I'm gonna now check out all your interviews. I usually try to, because usually you'll say something different on every interview in terms of something I haven't heard before. So I'm going to be checking out your story because I'm very interested in this sort of download type thing. I sort of got dragged into this by a contactee who came and told me that the aliens were influencing music, and I really didn't take much credit about it until the guy who invented crop circles, Colin Andrews, came and told me that he had 5 bands approach him that basically told him, yeah, we believe that we're getting influenced here. And so that's when I started to, chase down this road. And he mentioned the Moody Blues and John Anderson from Yes. And you may have talked to some of these people about their experiences. But
I know John Anderson. He lives about 4 miles from me here on the California Central Coast. And I knew Justin from the Moody Blues, and Michael Pinder. I actually played music with Michael Pinder a couple of times, and he had a studio in Malibu for a while. He doesn't anymore. But yeah, John Lennon and I didn't talk about aliens or anything inspiring us. We were just both amazed. We both had the same kind of feeling when a song would come through, and it deserves more investigation as to where it's coming from.
Yeah, it certainly does, because John had his sighting, and in August of '74, and when May Pang tells the story, she talks about all this bizarre sort of stuff that was going on, that the neighbor didn't come up, and all the buildings were sort of looked like they were vacated, and there was nobody in the building, in the apartments and stuff, and it was sort of like time sort of stood still. And John never talked about that, but you hear so many different major musicians talking about their sightings, and the number of songs that have been written with UFO lyrics and about love and leaving fear behind, and these kind of lyrics that UFO experiencers talk about. That I know Mike started the thing, and I got dragged into it later on, but Mike Luckman sort of did a fantastic job in sort of outlining how many musicians have had UFO experiences or who have talked about UFOs. It's kind of unique, and there's definitely, as you say, there's got to be something going on, and it does deserve further investigation.
Yeah, I know his next book is going to be centered completely on that theory, because he's already interviewed me about it.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you coming public and telling this story, and I hope it goes well for you, and I hope we have the big concert, and I may even come down there to watch it. I mean, if it's going to happen in California, I may come down there to see it. So,
where are you at, Grant?
I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, the coldest city in the world.
Okay, Winnipeg. All right.
Any chance we got to come to California, we take it. So, I wish you all the best, and thanks again for your story.
Thanks for calling, Grant.
Yeah, great to meet you, Grant, and I think
Beautiful.
We're going to talk again sometime.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I hope so.
All right.
Okay.
Bye, Grant.
Bye-bye.
Bye. It's great.
Well, that was really neat, Solaris. Thank you for putting him on, because I've been hearing from several people and different radio hosts that he was interested in my music and everything, and I'd never heard of him before, and it was a delight to meet him.
Yeah, he's wonderful. He's been a guest on my show before, and yeah, he makes an awesome co-host as well. And he should have stuck around, but I'm glad he called in. Yeah, he has a lot of respect for you, and of course, he has so much information on the contactee aspect of music and the industry itself, which I find very interesting. What I'm thinking is we're going to be queuing up your songs. Pretty sure. I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing that. If I can go in here for a second with my producer, I think we're going to go ahead and play those. If you'd like us to go ahead and play those.
Sure.
We're ready to roll.
And at least play one of them.
Yeah, we have two of them we're going to be playing, and let's see here. I believe. Yeah, we're going to do, I believe it's going to be Messages from the Dome.
Okay.
All right, everybody. nice indeed. And we have signals from Malibu coming up. This is next. And with me. How cool is that? Merle, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's every time I hear it, boy, it takes me someplace, and I realize you're just playing snippets of each song. But that signal that went out, the lower thing, that's the one of the things that sounded exactly like the Billy Meyer recordings.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it certainly does. And so where did you get the messages from the Dome title? What came to mind when you created that title?
Well, I was thinking of going underwater, and I was thinking of if I was, which you can't do because it's 2,000 feet, if I was scuba diving into the opening of that anomaly that's on the floor of the ocean there. And I told Michael Luckman, he's been trying to get, somebody with an ROV remote sub with a video in it to go down and go into that opening and video it and see what's in there. So I was visualizing what it would be like to be underwater and going in there, and just that this dome was sending these messages. And I know you've looked at it on the internet. You can Google Malibu underwater anomaly, and you'll see this building, and it's huge, Solaris. I don't know if you know how big it is, but it's almost 2,000 feet across with these giant pillars that go down, 700 feet or something. And the main opening to the thing in the middle, I think, is about 500 feet. And it's white in color, so it stands out from the sandbar that it's next to. And, if it is something natural, boy, Mother Nature really did something very different there. But I don't know if you heard or if I told you, the Chumash Indians were the indigenous tribe that were here up and down the coast of California. And I found out from them, they say they knew about this building for hundreds of years, and that at one point there was actually a fishing village where what is now partially the beach, and you could actually walk out on the top of this dome because it was out of the water. It was when the ocean level was down lower. And what they said really blew my mind, that matter-of-factly, yes, this is part of the civilization of Mu, or Lemuria.
Oh, very interesting.
That gave me goosebumps because I've been studying this since 1969, the lost continent of Mu theory, and I've done all that exploration in Hawaii and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So for them to say that, all of a sudden, I'm just going, oh my God, this is really something. How it's all connected. And the interesting thing that most people don't know, I've looked at topographical maps. Right up the mountain in a direct straight line from where this, if I can call it a building out there on the floor of the ocean, there's these huge rock monoliths that have these petroglyphs on them. And I know people that have gone up there and looked at them and everything, and they even said, oh yeah, we used to party there in the 70s. And that's in a straight line with this anomaly that's under the ocean. And as a teenager, I used to go down there. A group of us would go down from Pismo Beach, where I'm at now. I'm right in the exact middle between Los Angeles and San Francisco on the ocean. I'm near the beach. We used to drive down there, about a 2.5 hour drive, and go surfing. And when we'd finish surfing at night, a bunch of people from there and us, they'd make bonfires and hang out on the beach for a little bit. And this one person would say, well, it's about time for the lights to come out. And I went, what do you mean? And he says, oh, we sit here and every once in a while we see these lights right out there coming in and out of the ocean. And I went, oh, that's interesting. And we never thought much about it. And my friend that was with me kind of laughed, and he said, oh, they're watching pelicans fishing, because up here in Pismo Beach and Avila, that's what they do. They dive, into the ocean and get a fish and then fly back out. Mm-hmm. So we thought, oh, they're just seeing, pelicans fishing. But then it kept going on, and I lost track of, what was really happening. And then I found out that they had been seeing, something flying around in that area for many, many years. Mm-hmm. So
it's quite fascinating, yeah.
And that's what led to them thinking that this might be an underwater UFO base.
Mm-hmm. It certainly sounds like that. And I was going to tell you, Jimmy Church, our host here from Fade to Black, is actually on the Dark Matter Radio Network, is actually one of the people who discovered the Malibu underwater base on Google. And so I've been trying to get Jimmy to get you on his show, and hopefully maybe Jimmy will call in. I did invite him on to see if he wanted to connect in or not. But yeah.
I sent him an email because Mark Eddy was telling me, oh, Jimmy wants to talk to you about this. And I said, oh, that'd be great. So I sent him an email and told him I'd be glad to come on. And my calendar is filling up, but I'll figure out a date. Hopefully we can get together.
Oh, gosh, yeah, I'm sure he'd love to have you on the show, without a doubt. Yeah, that's fascinating. When you look at the history of all these, records of UFO craft coming in and out of the water, there's an ancient history that hasn't been revealed to the masses. So we're getting tidbits,
Yeah, when I lived in Hawaii, I think I told you off the air when we were talking earlier, that when I moved to Maui and I was studying the lost continent of Mu theory, and the old Hawaiians accepted me so well. It's interesting because here I am, a blonde haole, and they're not that too friendly sometimes to newcomers. But they took me right under their wing. But I did the same thing that Willie Nelson did. I sang to them and played music to them and played with the Hawaiian musicians. So they loved me, And they would tell me about things that they saw. And then I started reading in old Hawaiian books. And one of them was Children of the Rainbow, written by Leilani Melville, about the Christian Hawaiian, pre-Hawaiian religion. And it was a religion of the Mu. But they say in there that they would see things coming out of the crater and diving into the ocean and then coming out of the ocean and flying back up into the crater. And this was in the 1800s. And it's interesting, Solaris, that there isn't really a lot of exposure of UFO activity in Hawaii, but there's a lot there, as you know. And on most of these TV programs and documentaries I've seen, they're all over the world, but never in Hawaii.
I know, and I keep trying to steer people over there. Not only is there an anomaly when it comes to extraterrestrials and craft, there's also a very strong paranormal energy, which is mystical, and to me, I think has a correlation and connection to an off-world race. But they talk about the men of metal that come out of Haleakala. I've heard of that before, and I had heard stories of these lights hovering in and out of the water early morning, like 3 a.m. And of course, we discussed a little bit off air about your adventures up at Haleakala and a little bit of some things that were going on. We want to elaborate a little bit on that with the pyramid?
Yeah. When I moved to Maui in 1973, I was so inspired by the lost continent of Mu theory, and I found this book called The Lost Continent of Mu when I was living in Woodland Hills, from near L.A., called The Lost Continent of Mu by Colonel James Churchward, who explored the Yucatan and found all of these writings that he believed came from this sunken civilization, and that the islands of Hawaii were part of this civilization. And when they were further up out of the water, the ocean was further inland here. And there's, a lot of remnants. I can go 20 minutes inland here up on a mountain, and there's fossilized starfish and stuff. So that, there was water from the sea up that high. Well, I met this old Hawaiian guy, and I started talking about the lost continent of Mu, and his eyes kind of glowed, and he says, I have something I can show you down in the forest, but I can't go there. It's taboo. And he said, I used to play there when I was a little kid, but my parents would tell me they didn't want me to go down there because the Mu people might get me. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, you'll recognize it when you see it. So he showed me the trail, and he stood at the top of the trail while I walked in to this really overgrown gulch. And I got to this place, and it was like doing Indiana Jones before they created the character. And I walked up, there was this pristine little waterfall coming down to this small pool, and sitting on this stone platform in a semicircle were 4 pillars, I estimated to be about 30 feet tall, and they were sort of Grecian looking, but not exactly. And the one to my far right had broken off, and part of it was laying submerged in this little pool. And I noticed the stonework looked very much like Mayan Indian stonework. And there is no geologist in the world that will make me believe that that stonework that they were sitting on was natural, that it was, it may have been basalt and, formed from lava from the volcano, but somebody, made these blocks and fitted them together.
Mm-hmm. Oh, certainly. Yeah. Are you there?
It looked.
It seemed like we had a little bit of interference. I was just wondering what that was.
I heard something whistling.
Yeah, I hear it too. Maybe you're summoning something with that music. Who knows?
Yeah. But anyhow, Solaris, what happened, I noticed that there was like a sidewalk going off to the left under this hibiscus. If you know anything about it, it's like giant hibiscus. It turns into a jungle gym that can grow 80 feet high. And so I'm crawling on my hands a knee on this stone-cut sidewalk, and it goes right off into the ocean. And the water was clear enough there. I could see the sidewalk continuing on, and then I saw where the lava flow, which I think in that area was about 800 years old at that time, went over this stone sidewalk. So that told me whatever this was older than 800 years old. Mm-hmm. So though that was in the East Maui rainforest. And then in 1974, I was hiking through the crater, Haleakala crater, with my band Moo, and we were going down the Switchback Trail, as it's called, to Holua Cabin. And we were about halfway down, and we stopped, and I looked out into the floor of the dried lava field, and I saw this pyramid sticking up. And I said, guys, look at that. That looks like a pyramid. And we're all just amazed. And the odd thing about it is you can't see it at a certain time of the day because of the shadows. It blends right in, and you can't distinguish it. So when we got down to the cabin and everything, we got cleaned up. And the next morning I said, I'm going over to that pyramid. So I grabbed my little camera, and I started hiking, and it looked like it was, maybe a city block away or something, but it turned out to be much further. And the lava is so sharp, it was cutting my jeans up, it was cutting my shoes up, and I was jumping these chasms that if I fell into one, there's probably no way I would get out, and who knows when somebody would find me. Well, I finally got to this pyramid, and it was indeed a smooth-sided pyramid, maybe 40 to 50 feet tall, and I tried to climb up on the side of it, and I got so much vertigo I thought I was going to get sick, and I had to come down, and then I wobbly climbed out to a vantage point where I could get a picture of it on the horizon so you could see what it was. And I was on Janet Lassen's show this last weekend, and her husband was on, and he has gone to that pyramid before, and he said that people have now made a shrine out of it, and they place flowers and offerings around it.
That's amazing.
And then it got in the newspaper, and I almost got in trouble because, the Parks Department and the Rangers absolutely forbid you from leaving the trails because somebody could fall in one of those lava tubes or something, and nobody would ever find you again. And it was just amazing to me that there was something like that there in Haleakala. And I had other discoveries on the complete other side of the island past Kihei, too.
And Merrell, we're going to have to stop you right there, but we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to play your music again. During the break, it'll be about 3 minutes.
Wonderful.
All right. Very nice indeed. Signals from Malibu. And welcome back to Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven. This is Hyperspace. And I'm here with my very, very special guest, Merrell Fankhauser. And Merrell, you with me?
Yes, I'm here, Solaris.
That is so wonderful. I love hearing that music. It's just awesome.
Ah, great. Well, you'll like I guess you've heard the rest of the album also, right?
It's a beautiful album. Yeah, I'm thinking it's just so unique and original. I don't hear anything like that anywhere. You know what it kind of reminds me of? The closest thing I can think of would be Elias of Sun Hollow. You said you were friends with John Anderson. Do you remember that album?
Vaguely.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, it didn't have the special effects like that, but it kind of reminds me of that. It has kind of a celestial theme to it, but very nice, very beautiful.
Yeah, John and I are on the same British label, Gonzo Multimedia, and he moved to Arroyo Grande, where I live, and he lives back up here in the foothills.
Nice.
So we have kind of a connection, as we're both on the same record label, and we bump into each other at the local post office every once in a while.
That sounds like great minds think alike over there. You guys are very star people oriented, in my opinion. So that's a good thing.
Yes.
Yes, it is. So tell me about your other adventures on Maui. I know we kind of went into a break there real quick, but let's talk a little bit about what else you were involved in when you were out there.
Yeah, well, after the pyramid in the crater, and then, like I told you, I was so glad to hear that somebody else had gone to this pyramid. Sasha Lesson, Janet Lesson's husband, actually had hiked there with a group, and that they've turned it into some sort of a shrine now, which I think is just wonderful, because there was a rumor after I discovered it, and it got in the local newspaper, and I just heard that the Parks Department wasn't very happy that I had let this out and let the local newspaper, print a picture of it. And by the way, you can see a picture of this pyramid and the pillars at my website, www.Merrell Fankhauser, MERRELLFANKHAUSER.com. If you go there, there's pictures of these discoveries. But I heard that the National Geographic Society went up there with some sort of an auger and bored a hole in the side of it, and they concluded that it was just the capstone to a much larger pyramid that went down under the lava flow. And that's very possible. So anyhow, we zoom ahead to the early 80s, around 1982, I think it was. I kept hearing these rumors past Kihei, which you know well. You come to McKenna Beach. Have you ever been to McKenna Beach?
Yep, I sure have.
And then if you keep going, you end up at La Perouse, and the road ends there, and because there's nothing but an old lava flow out there. And there's no vegetation, no trees or anything. The old Hawaiians call it the King's Burial Ground. And it's a spooky place for them. Some brave Hawaiian fishermen go out there and fish, but most Hawaiians won't go out there, and they will absolutely not be out there when it gets dark. And they talk about the spirits that are living out there, and people have heard babies crying in the night and voices howling and everything. So I took an expedition out there, and I tried to take my film producer, Charlie Booth, and his crew out there, and the cameras were huge back then still. And we had 3 guys carrying the cameras and the tripods and everything. And there's this building out there that's on a ridge, a red cinder cone-like ridge that's as big as a drugstore. And down in the bottom of this building, it's a Hawaiian building built on the top of another structure. There's a hole in one corner of the floor, and a rickety old ladder, and you can see where people have made torches out of things so they could see. And it's that exact same, there's a chamber underneath there that's that exact same kind of cut stone floor and walls that I found on the complete other side of the island in the jungle. Well, anyhow, I tried to get this expedition to go all the way out there, and you're walking on this like stone roadway that would maybe be big enough to drive a Jeep on, and it's got these really nice rock walls on each side of it. And then you'll come to a place where the lava has just flowed over it. And I heard that lava field was over 800 years. They think maybe 1,000 years old. And you have to climb over a mound of lava, and there you see the road going again, and you start walking on it. Well, you look out into this lava flow, and you see doorsteps and walls, and it's amazing. It's like there was a whole very large village out there that's submerged in the lava, and there's ruins everywhere. They're so easy to see. And then there's these deep pits that were made, and somebody told me those were like reservoirs to store water in. And I couldn't get the film crew to go all the way out there because it gets so hot, and that black lava rock heat, if there's any sun, it just draws the heat. And there's no water out there, there's no vegetation, and you got to be very well prepared and a good hiker in good condition, and wear back then we didn't wear sunscreen, but wear sunscreen and a hat, and just make sure you have a lot of water and be very careful. So we only got about halfway, and we filmed some of the ruins that we found there, but I had to go a separate expedition with just me and two other people, real light, and we didn't even bring any cameras to make it all the way to that building I was talking about with the stone-cut floor. But I couldn't make it there with Charlie Booth and his film group that day, but we had to spend the night out there. And we spent the night in one of these ruins, and there were two girls with us, and the girls were hearing it more than the guys were, which was interesting to me, They were hearing all these weird sounds and explaining what they were hearing, and I heard a lot of strange things, and I just thought, well, it's the wind whistling through all of these jagged, pieces of lava that look like some sculptor had created. And we had a hard time getting back out of there, and we almost ran out of water before we got to our car. And we had hotel rooms booked at Wailea, and we were so glad to get back to the hotel because we were all exhausted just from that 2-day trip. Well, June before last, I was on Coast to Coast, and I was talking about these ruins. And the next day, I got a whole lot of emails. In fact, over a week and a half period of time after I was on the show, I got 840 emails.
Oh, my goodness.
It shut my computer down so it couldn't handle it.
That's great.
But I got one email from a couple that were vacationing on Maui. And the guy was really into, archaeology and everything, and said, I want to go there. Tell me exactly how to get there. And so I described how to get there. And I told him, I said, but it's very treacherous and it's very long and very hot. Take lots of water, make sure you're dressed appropriately, and I would recommend hiking boots for sure. So he and his wife went on this trek, and he went out there and he started finding some of the ruins. He didn't make it to the big ruin I was talking about that had the cut stone floor, but he made it to several other ruins, and several that that were off of the stone trail that I didn't even go up to, but he took pictures of them with his cell phone and sent them back to me. And then he said that his wife almost got sunstroke or heat exhaustion, and they didn't know if they were going to make it back. And this was just, from early in the morning till trying to get back in the evening to get back. Mm-hmm. But he sent me these pictures, and he said, I couldn't believe it, man. They were right there, right where you said they were, and here they are. They're on these pictures. And he sent me the pictures.
It's so amazing, and it's interesting because it's almost like they've had they've kept it as a sacred protected land. There's so many areas that are hidden that nobody knows about, and you've been able to discover a lot of these, which I find really interesting.
That's exactly right. There's a younger surfer girl from Hawaii that was born on Maui, and she's really interested in things like this. And she emailed me and she said, Merrell, I can't believe it. My parents, my uncles, nobody has ever told me about this. She said, I didn't even know any of these things existed on Maui. And another guy that was born on Maui, a Hawaiian guy, said the same thing. Mm-hmm. He'd never heard of this, but he grew up in Kahului, and a lot of the Hawaiians don't like to go out in the countryside, and they are spooked about being out there at night. And I've ran into lots of heiaus and different ruins that are on the mountainside in the jungle on the road to Hana. There's lots of ruins out there, and the ancient waterways, the tributaries that are out there that they say was built by the Menehune.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's interesting. They talk about the night marchers also. I'm sure you're familiar with those in Wailuku and Iao Valley, because to me, I would pick up on their energy when I was out there, but I never felt anything bad. It was always like a protective kind of shield for me. But it's really powerful. So powerful, those areas.
Yeah.
Really love it.
Exactly. And Eki Crater has all of its lore and legend too. In the late 20s, I think, or early 30s, there was a whole National Geographic group. I think it was 11 people went in there and was never seen again, never came out.
And you never really hear about that stuff,
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, that's the hidden history that, obviously connects to some kind of ancient heritage and what I would consider a celestial heritage, like ancient Lemuria for sure. And I've also known that, the ancient Hawaiian Islands in general are definitely connected to the Lemurian energies. So however you want to, unravel that, it's there and its presence is known. And the mother energy, what we call the mother energy, which is very powerful and sacred. I'm sure you've picked up on it when you were out there.
Oh, yeah. Mother Maui. That's what they call it. Mother Maui.
Yeah, I really love it over there. I certainly do. And did you get a bad vibe on Hana, though? Because I've had some strange things happen to me on the road to Hana.
No, I never had a bad vibe, but I know you have to be very careful, in those one-lane bridges and everything. But no, I never had a bad vibe, but I know people have been killed on that highway.
Yep.
Out there quite a bit, and I played an interesting concert in 1974 with David Carradine, Barbara Hershey, who was his wife at the time, and Ramblin' Jack Elliott, a Greenwich Village folk singer, and Bonnie Bramlett from Delaney and Bonnie. And we did this concert out there at this private residence, and it was produced by a guy by the name of Red Shepard, who was the Broadway one of the Broadway stars in the production of Hair. And he wanted us to play this concert and headline it. And we went out there, and I met David Carradine, and they filmed it with two 35-millimeter film projectors or cameras, and they built this beautiful teakwood stage in front of a 40-foot waterfall, and it was in Kipahulu, which is, near Hana. And they filmed the whole thing, and we did this awesome concert. It was like a 2-day event, and we were driving out there, and it was during the gas shortage. And there was hippies abandoning their cars that were running out of gas. And every time we'd go around a corner, there'd be some hippie guy there with long brown hair and a beard. And Jeff Cotton, the guitar player in my band, kept saying, "Merle, that guy looked exactly like Jesus." We'd go around another corner, and I'd go, "Hey, Jeff, there's Jesus again." And we lost track of how many people we saw, that all looked, and they were all beckoning. We picked up our roadies that were driving behind us in a truck, picked up as many as they could. Mm-hmm. And we got there, and they had left a Volkswagen at the Little Hana airstrip for Ramblin' Jack Elliott to drive to the concert, because it was only 2 miles from the Little Hana airstrip. Well, he had drank a little coming over on the flight over, and there's a small plane that'll take you from the airport in Kahului out to that strip. Mm-hmm. And he hit a telephone post. He didn't get too hurt. He got a little cut on his head, but it was kind of a funny story because he knocked out most of the power to the concert.
Oh, wow.
And he came up the driveway with this cut on his head, and said, "Oh, am I at the right place? Oh, I had a little accident." And they got a bunch of guys out there and a bunch of hippies, and they got the power back on and everything. And Ramblin' Jack got cleaned up, and everybody was smoking, the strong Maui Wowie. And I think Ramblin' Jack had partook in a little too much of that, because when he came on stage, and it was just as the sun was going down on the first day, he had forgot to put his pants on.
Oh, gosh.
So there he was in an Aloha shirt with his cowboy hat on, singing Bob Dylan songs. And I told the sound guy, I said, I got a shock from that microphone earlier today. And I said, I hope he doesn't lean into the mic. But we had a great concert, and they filmed it, and they were supposed to release it on film, but I think it was David Carradine's management at the time wouldn't sign the contracts, and so the film never came out. But my promoter, Audrey Franklin in Hollywood, got to see it at a closed showing, and she said it was just awesome, and it was really a shame. It was going to be called Maui 74, and the film never came out.
Oh, that's too bad. That would have been fun to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. It's kind of a bummer on that end. It seemed like it was just happier times back then. Things have changed drastically, in America, and it seems like even Maui's changed a little bit, I'm sure. But
oh yeah, I hadn't gone back till last March. I went back, and I hadn't been back in 9 years, mm-hmm. and I was kind of sad, Solaris, because it has grown so much, and it was so overpopulated to me now, and just driving through the little town of Paia was a traffic jam, which never happened before,
Right.
And Charlie's restaurant was named after this Dalmatian. They used to sleep in the middle of the Hana Highway, and people would drive around the dog. Mm-hmm. And that became one of Willie Nelson's favorite hangouts. And it's just not the same to me. I mean, the island still has the vibe that you and I know, and that feeling is there and everything. Mm-hmm. But gosh, even in March, it was just so crowded. I went, oh my God, what happened to my island? You know, it's still really nice if you get out in the country and everything. But I couldn't believe it. Where I used to live in Walo on the mountainside, now there were just a few little cabins and things. And now there's a subdivision with street lights and paved roads.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I used to ride my bike everywhere when I lived out there. And I can tell you, too, and I'm sure you're familiar with Wailea and all those hotels there that actually were built over ancient burial mounds.
Oh, yeah.
We had
Yep.
kahunas come in and bless the area because they thought it was cursed from the spirits getting angry that they were building.
Oh, yeah. I've heard all kinds of stories and weird things happening in the hotel rooms and everything. Yeah.
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 A lot of security people used to tell me that with the lights going on and off and just strange energy. I used to work security out there too, and that's a long story. But I remember one time I was at a hotel and I was working overnight security, and there was a guy next door working his security, and he called me and he said he was spooked by a spirit and he wanted me to talk to him. It was so
Uh-huh.
funny, but he was so terrified. I mean, he was just really scared. And he goes, "Will you talk to me for a little while because I'm really freaked out?" And apparently he had encountered some kind of a spirit. So I thought that was
Yeah.
really interesting, but that's not unheard of over there.
No, that's true. And they say, there's so many rocks and stones that people pick up and take home with them to get shipped back to Hawaii because weird things started happening
Right.
to them.
Yeah. They get cursed by, yeah, I've heard that also. People are very superstitious. Well, yeah, I kind of agree with that. There's definitely something going on there energetically speaking. And I think if you come to the island with respect to the spirit world, you're fine. But if you come with it with some sort of a different energetic or maybe some kind of an ego, then I think things can go wrong. That's my impression anyway. They say it either the island embraces you or it kicks you out.
Exactly.
So,
And
yeah.
I've known that happen to several people that went over there,
Hmm.
and even couples. The guy felt completely in tune there, and his wife just couldn't handle it and had to get on the next plane out, and stories like that.
Hmm. It's a
And I
powerful.
went there in a spiritual feeling and a quest that I was on for the lost continent of Mu,
Nice.
and I just felt like the Hawaiian people embraced me. They told me things that they even told me they don't even talk to certain other Hawaiian people about, and I really felt blessed and honored, and there'll always be a place in my heart for the Hawaiian Islands, and I got to spend some time on Kauai
Mm.
also and explore some ruins there, and got to meet Cary Tagawa, the actor, and he told me about things that he found in the valleys and out in the jungle there on Kauai.
Hmm. Oh, I believe it. Yeah, I do resonate with the people there too. I really do. There's a lot of love in my heart for the locals, and I felt a total connection to them on a spiritual level when I was out there. Completely.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
yeah.
there's a nice energetic associated. There's just something there at the soul level, at the spiritual level. I think sometimes on the mainland people forget about that. You know.
Oh yeah. When I hear the Hawaiian language, it's odd. I can understand some of it, and it almost brings tears to my eyes. I get emotional.
Hmm.
Hula does that to me, and I, played with a lot of Hawaiian musicians there, and I played with Willie Kay and Willie Nelson at a big concert at the Mac in town.
Cool.
And in fact, you can see Willie Nelson and I in the band doing Wipeout
I
together
did actually.
there
That was awesome, by the way. I did check that out.
on YouTube. And it's just been a wonderful experience. But I knew, after living there for 15 years, I would go back every 3 or 4 years. And in the last 9 years, as I mentioned, I haven't been able to go back as much because I've been just so busy over here doing my TV show, Tiki Lounge, and then doing concerts and recording, and it just keeps me busy. I miss it, and I hope that I can go back there more and recharge the spiritual batteries.
Yeah, I think you need to be honest. You need a balance. I even feel it too. I mean, living on the mainland, I feel like I need to live by water at least some part of the year. So, yeah,
Yeah.
Maui calls. It always calls me, without a
Yeah,
doubt.
that was the thing, Solaris. When I moved there in 1973, I met all these people that it was like I knew them from another life or something, and we all talked about our experiences of how we were vibed to go there. And a lot of the people I met were from California and Oregon that were all vibed to go there.
Hmm. Yeah, they say there's an ascension portal there for higher consciousness, and I don't discount that at all. I think it's an activation point across the globe.
Yeah.
Real power spot. I mean, on a higher level, because it certainly does change your DNA and alters your frequency. And I think your music and what you've been doing with this anomaly signal also does that, by the way. So there's something to it, and I'm curious to see how it affects people energetically.
Yeah. It's it definitely took me into a different realm of creativity with my music. I had some very good inspiration here on the Central Coast and then in LA, but when I went to Maui, oh man, it was like I went into a higher plane for sure.
Yeah, and you're very high. I would say your vibration's pretty high to begin with. So, yeah, kind of like a star being. So, and I was going to ask you about the Tiki Lounge. Let's talk about that. Now, you've been doing that for 13 years, right?
Yeah, I started out, well, I was, I'd be on TV all the time in LA and people interviewing me and everything. And I just, at one point, Charlie Booth, the filmmaker from Detroit, when he came over and filmed Calling from a Star, he said, "Merrell, have you ever thought of doing a TV show?" And I said, "No, that would be something." He said, "Yeah, you should do a TV show." So I, did some TV on Maui, and some of the videos that he had shot were shown on the public access station there on Maui. And oddly enough, when I came back from Maui in the early 90s, a local station here called me up that had seen me on television on Maui and said, "How would you like to do a half-an-hour music show? And we are on a satellite network out of New York, and I think you would be a good candidate for a music show." So I started doing this show called California Music in 1990, and I called up some of my old friends. I got Mike Love of the Beach Boys on the show and several people. And then record companies started sending me videos and things, and Bonnie Raitt, and I can't even remember all the people. So they sent it to this Channel America satellite company, and they bought the show, and it was going on 3 times a week for about 3.5 years to 15 million viewers.
That's great.
And even in South America, I'd get emails from Brazil and Peru and letters. They would actually write me letters, and some of the letters from Brazil were in Portuguese. I don't know how they thought I could speak Portuguese. But that led me, then I got real busy touring and recording and everything, and it led me to doing the Tiki Lounge. And the way that happened was I bought a 7-foot-tall Samoan tiki, and I put it in my patio. And one night I was sitting here looking at the tiki, and I said, "Wow, I should do a TV show and call it Tiki Lounge." And my Hawaiian Japanese girlfriend I was with at the time, Yuriko, thought it was a splendid idea. And so I started calling up people again and having them on the show. And what I usually do is interview them, and then we either jam and play live together, or they'd bring their record company produced video, and we'd put it on. Well, it went from being on this one local station in San Luis Obispo that would cover all of San Luis Obispo County, almost up to Salinas, to Santa Barbara County. They picked it up. Then the next thing I knew, I was on Santa Monica Cable down in L.A., and then I ended up on Ann Arbor and Battle Creek, Michigan, on cable there. And then about 10 years ago, Maui decided they wanted to air my show over there, and it's aired there on Akaku Channel 54.
Nice.
And I'm nearing 100 shows now, and you can see some of the clips on YouTube if you just type in Merrell Fankhauser's Tiki Lounge. A lot of the shows will come up, or videos that are in the shows. And it's really been fun doing the show and reconnecting with people I hadn't seen, other musicians in 30 years. Mm-hmm. And then my label in Britain decided they wanted to put out 2 volumes of the show on DVD with a soundtrack. And so there's 6 shows to a volume, and they put out volume 1 and volume 2, and the whole concert I did on Maui with Willie Nelson is on volume 1. And you can order those on the internet, and you can order them from Amazon, or you can get them directly from gonzomultimedia.com.
Excellent. Yeah. I started checking those out today too, by the way. That's pretty cool.
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
And let's talk a little bit about your new book. Now, Calling from a Star, that just came out and went live December 1st, right?
Just came out December 1st. And it's already getting a lot of orders, and it's at Amazon.com, Calling from a Star, the Merrell Fankhauser story. And it starts out, life begins in Kentucky, and talks about me growing up in Kentucky. And I guess I was always infatuated with Indians and Tarzan, because I was always hanging out in the woods and creeks and fishing and stuff. And
nice.
It chronicles the whole thing of moving to California. My dad kept saying, we're going to get out of this cold and snow, and we're going to move to California.
Nice.
And that's what we did when I was around 12 years old, just turning to 13. And when I was 11 years old, I remember they bought me a ukulele for my birthday, I think it was one year. And my dad played guitar, and he started teaching me chords and things. And then before I knew it, I was making up my own little songs, even at 12 years old. And then when I got out here to California, boy, it was like the floodgates opened up, and the songs just started coming out. And I, ended up playing in talent shows, and then I got a job at a local theater here and started playing in between the matinees. And then I formed a group called the Impacts. They were all high school students, and we got a job playing at a local teen club in Pismo Beach, which led us to getting the house band job at the local large auditorium called the Rose Garden Ballroom, where all kinds of bands like the Ventures and Little Richard and, the Isley Brothers, Brenda Lee, they all had played there, Dwayne Eddy, and I got to meet a lot of those people. And we were discovered by a talent scout in 1962 that took us down to L.A., and we recorded a whole album of instrumentals that I and the other guitar player had written. And the term surf music hadn't really been coined yet. Mm-hmm. And then one day I got wiped out while I was surfing, and the sax player was laughing at me going, "Oh boy, you really got wiped out." And I had this idea for a song in my head, and I was driving home, and I thought, Wipeout, that's a good title. So I used that, and the next thing I knew, Delphi Records, who also discovered Richie Valens and Bobby Fuller and a bunch of people, put the album out, and little by little it ended up being a million seller, and that started the whole thing going. And I was going to college to be an aeronautical engineer, and I dropped out after a year and a half.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It's like you were fated, though.
Yeah, it was destiny. And now, actually, my website says 250 songs. Well, in 35 years, well, it's now 50 years, Solaris. I've got to get that updated. And it's nearing 400 songs released that I have out.
That's incredible. You are a legend without a doubt. And everybody knows Wipeout. I mean, that's a classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
goes through everybody's heads.
It's been recorded by dozens of groups.
Mm-hmm.
And one time I was driving in town from my house in Walo, and I went up Haiku Road, and I stopped by the little elementary school that's there, and I go, what am I hearing? It was a whole group of Hawaiian students, ukulele students, I guess, and they were out on the playground under a tree, and they were playing Wipeout.
That's too cute.
And I just couldn't believe it. I was going, oh, my God, I wish I didn't have video cameras like they do now. Back then, I was thinking, oh, if I could only get this on film, what a moment, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, quite the legacy when you think about it.
Yeah.
All those kids trying to play that music.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I really felt just so good when the Hawaiians loved the music I wrote, you know, in 1975 and 76, like On Our Way to Hana and Waterfall. Those were both hits on all of the radio stations on Maui and Kauai and the Big Island and even Oahu. And people would come over looking for me from the other islands, just that they wanted to tell me how much they liked the music and wanted to meet me. And it's been
really
a
nice.
real honor and humbling experience.
And I must say you're very down to earth too. You're pretty grounded and very, very kind and spiritually evolved. At least that's what you strike me as. So,
Well, thank
didn't
you.
go to your head. Which is a good thing. And you said your dad was an aviator, right?
Yeah, my dad was a flight instructor, and he was, in his early days, he was an Indianapolis race car driver.
Oh, cool.
And he was very talented metal worker and, you know, very mechanically oriented. And our heritage is very interesting. My mother was German, and my dad was Swiss and half Wyandot Indian.
Wow.
His mother was a full-blooded Wyandot Indian, so I'm a quarter Indian, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very open-minded, and like I said, he, you know, I used to build all kinds of models, flying models and things, and I even built a flying saucer once that flew. It didn't have any power, but it was a glider, and he would sit around with me and help me with these designs and things, and that's what led me to end up wanting to be an aeronautical engineer. And when we first moved to California, we ended up running a glider port at Lake Elsinore, California, a beautiful little town in Southern California. It's inland going towards San Diego, but it's inland on the other side of what is it? Oh gosh, I'm forgetting the mountain range that's right there. But I learned to fly glider when I was only 14 because you didn't have to have a license to fly a sailplane at that time. Mm-hmm. And then I later soloed in a Piper Cub. So I became a pilot also.
Nice.
And you know, I just remember back then just wondering what was going on with UFOs and flying saucers. I was just so captivated by it.
Well, it sounds like it, even as a child. So did you have any UFO experiences other than the one you mentioned as a child? Did you have any contactee experiences or anything like that?
No, that was the whole thing, Solaris. I was looking all my life. And I'd be flying and I would look for things. And I heard of other people seeing stuff and I'm going, why haven't I seen anything? I know they're out there. And my dad would always say, oh, yes, we're not the only ones in this universe. That would be too much of an ego trip, to think that we're the only ones. And I was always looking and I never saw anything. And there, that casual evening, watching the sun go down in Haleakala, there it came.
Wow, that's amazing. And do you paint?
I used to draw and I used to paint when I was younger, but I was kind of infatuated with Gauguin and Van Gogh and Monet, and I studied all of those painters and everything. And I was very good in art when I was in high school. And I draw plans of flying machines and things, but I don't do any painting. Now, I remember one night when I was living in Woodland Hills, I got inspired, and I was almost like throwing the paint at the canvas, and I came up with these like outer space looking paintings. And I don't know what happened to those. I think they went with my ex-wife.
Oh, bummer. I was going to say, you strike me as someone who would be a very good artist, painting-wise, with UFOs and things. Yeah.
I lost those paintings, and I wish I had them. But, you get carried away in the music world, and I don't have time to build little aircraft designs anymore either.
Right. Your music's awesome. Yeah, and your sound and your quality is just amazing. It's really, really amazing.
I was so happy when, I finally, that's the one thing I can say, I would lay in my little jungle house and just dream of having a recording studio. But I had no electricity. And so when I moved back to the mainland and I had made some money from a record and I bought my house, and I've got a large lot here with a back lot that I have a Tiki Lounge stage on now, that I've had all kinds of people from Canned Heat to members of the Starship have performed back here that we filmed. And I thank the gods that be for helping me get my 24-track studio together. And, that has helped in being able to record the music in a fresh, inspirational state and be able to get it out. And I own the rights to it. Back in the day, in the 60s, you'd have to give all of your rights away to a producer and then a record company, just to get your music recorded.
Oh, yeah, it's better to self-produce then, yeah.
Yeah, and then you can keep the rights. If you pay for the recording, of the music, then it's yours. And right now the deals I make with the new recordings, I'll lease it to a record company for 3 or 5 years, and then it reverts back to me. So I can go ahead and, lease it to another label if I want to. And I've been doing that now for, a good 15 years.
Oh, that's good. That way you have more control over everything, for sure.
Yeah.
It seems like the industry would rip people off.
Yeah, there was so much of that, and, we got ripped off when we did our first album because we signed all the copyrights away to the songs, and we didn't know anything about copyrights or anything. And I'd say the first, 8 years or more of the Wipeout album, by the Impacts being out, we didn't get a penny. We kept thinking the money was going to come in, and it never did. Mm-hmm. And then my dad and one of the other people got an attorney together. And then finally, in 1994, I've almost become a music attorney now. I know all the ins and outs of contracts, and I can spot something in a contract we own the rights to this music for now and until the universe ceases to exist. Mm-hmm. That was in a record company contract.
Oh my gosh.
Till the universe ceases to exist.
Oh no.
So I don't sign those kind of contracts anymore.
No way.
And in 94, I finally got all the rights back to that first album, my very first album, the Wipeout album. But it took me that many years to get the rights back.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry to hear that. That's kind of a bummer because that was a very successful song.
Yeah. And, then the other stuff I did in the 60s, my HMS Bounty album was a big seller too, and I did get something from that, and thankfully the publishers, I did sign the songs all away, but the publishers do split the money with me that comes in off of that. And then the Moo recordings, I still get something out of those. And it doesn't matter that you're on a big label either for aspiring songwriters out there. I've been on United Artists and Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is pretty good, but some of the other companies, they would sell, your song or your album to companies in Europe and not tell you about it and never pay you for it. And that happened with the stuff I was on Uni Records, which was part of MCA, a giant company. And you'd think, well, they're surely going to pay me. Mm-hmm. And maybe 12 years later, I found out that they had licensed my stuff to EMI Records in England.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff doesn't happen to me anymore, knock on wood, because I'm very careful about the contracts I sign.
Oh, I don't blame you. Not at all. And have you done any musical albums dedicated to ancient Lemuria?
Yes, I have. The Return to Moo album, do you know about that?
I haven't heard that one, I must say.
Okay. That was produced by William E. McEwen, my good friend.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful movie and record producer. He produced the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and some early Allman Brothers, and he discovered the comedian actor Steve Martin, produced a lot of his movies. He also produced Pee Wee Herman and a lot of other movies, and he's a great record producer. And he's one that lets the music come out of the artist. He doesn't try to control it. Some producers I've been involved with, they have this idea of what you should sound like or how your song should be constructed, and they try to change it. And William McEwen doesn't do that. He lets it come out from, the artist's feeling. Mm-hmm. And he produced this beautiful album on me in the late 90s. We worked on it, and it came out, it's been out on several labels now, called Return to Moo, and it's the whole story about Moo and the songs in it. I think we mentioned Lauren Adams when you and I were talking.
Right, yeah, I love Lauren Adams, yeah.
Well, he did the album cover for that.
Oh, nice.
And there's some of those songs are on YouTube. Under a Maui Moon is one. I think Mystical Land is there. But Gonzo Multimedia recently put out reissued the whole Return to Moo album with a DVD that's like a half-an-hour documentary on it.
Very good.
Yeah, and there's a little introduction for Return to Moo on YouTube also. If you go to YouTube and type in my name and Return to Moo, that'll come up.
That's awesome. So are you going to expand on the Signals from Malibu? What's next for you with that?
Well, it's all happening so fast. I'm trying to keep up with the orders I'm getting. So I'm just making them myself, and my local graphics man did a quick cover for it. The one I sent you, in fact, you were one of the first people I think I sent the album to after I finished it.
Oh, yay! How exciting.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to keep up with the orders that are trickling in now and hoping that Gonzo Multimedia wants to put it out. But, even with a larger record company, it seems it takes longer for them to get all the wheels in motion, and get everything produced and get it out. So I'm hoping they're going to have it out by January, that they'll be able to take it over. Nice. So right now I'm just so involved with trying to keep keep it going. And then more radio stations are requesting the single, the two songs, Signals from Malibu and Messages from the Dome. So luckily, a lot of those will accept MP3s, so I don't have to, send them a physical CD.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
So I'm trying to keep that going, and now I'm, going to go out on a book signing tour in January.
Nice.
And then, I'm doing more interviews now about the book. And as a matter of fact, I will send you a PDF of the book if you want to read it, and then maybe you'll have me on again in a few months.
Oh, you know I will. Are you kidding? And also, yeah, go ahead.
We can talk about things in the book, because since you've been on Maui and lived on Maui before, a lot of these things will be very familiar to you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And if you're ever in Colorado on your book tour, look me up.
I sure will. And if you're ever out here, look me up, and I'd love to have you on the set of Tiki Lounge and do a little interview with you.
That'd be fun. I play the flute, but I'm no I am what I am.
Well, that's good.
I can pull a flute solo off. That's pretty good. We have about 4 minutes left, plus or minus here. So before we go, I just have to thank you so much. It's been such an honor to have you on tonight, Merrell. It's been awesome.
Well, I feel like I've known you before, like I'm talking to an old friend, and you've really made it comfortable and nice to talk to, and that was really neat having Grant to come on too.
Oh, it certainly was, and likewise, yeah, I feel a connection too. He must be off-world space people or something. I don't know. Maybe that's the extraterrestrial thing going on there for sure. Yeah, and are you a ham radio operator?
No, I'm not. No, I don't have time for that. It's hard enough when I open the computer in the morning and there's 80 emails and I'm going, oh my gosh, how am I going to answer this? Sometimes it takes me a few days to answer all my emails.
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah, you need a secretary with that for sure. So
yeah.
Are you going to do any more research on decoding the anomaly transmission at all? Have you had any contacts with anyone to try to decipher it further, or?
Well, yeah, I'm working on that, and if you get any feedback on people that have heard those in the music or anything, and what kind of feelings they got. Now, this is interesting, too. Some of the female radio hosts that I've been on, like Tina Marie and Aaron Dakins and different people, they all really have a connection to the messages from the Dome. And they started telling me what they were feeling and what they were seeing. And I'm interested as to psychically what people are feeling about this, but at the same time, I'm going to keep investigating it scientifically. Like I said, I had an engineer put it in an oscilloscope and check it out. So I'm going to do more of that. And there's definitely, I feel, it reminds me of the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where they were putting out those musical tones.
Right. Yeah. Well, music is a universal language, without a doubt, when you think about that. And also, I've done some remote viewing on that underwater base, so maybe I'll send you some information on that if you'd like to look at it.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and I pick up on transmissions, too, so we can share that off the air for sure. And I do want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed Merrell. I know I did. And thank you, Keith, for being the ultimate producer in the background there over here at Dark Matter Radio Network. Also, stay tuned for Researcher on a Mission with Dr. J coming up next. And is there anything else we didn't mention? Your website and how people can purchase your CD and all that good stuff? It's on Amazon, right?
They can get the CD from direct from me, and I'll even sign it at merrellfankhauser.com. They can order it there. They can order the book, Calling from a Star, from Amazon.com, and it'll be coming up on other places soon, and it'll be at Barnes & Noble bookstores also.
Okay, and let's see here. And can you spell out your website?
Yes, it's Merrell, MERRELL, FANKHAUSER.com.
Excellent. I believe that's perfect. Yes, indeed. Okay, so I think we're just about ready to wrap it up here. And once again, it's been so awesome to have you on, and I wish you a very happy Christmas holiday, whatever you celebrate, and so many blessings. And thank you for sharing your talents with us over the years. I really appreciate what you've done here on this planet.
Thank you so much, Solaris, and we'll be talking again, I'm sure.
We certainly will. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Thank you, Keith.
Okay, bye-bye. Aloha.
Aloha. And mahalo.